There are certain sounds that transport you instantly back to childhood. The theme tune to a favorite cartoon, the specific crunch of autumn leaves underfoot, and then there's the school bell. Not the one that signaled the start of double maths, but the one that came mid-morning. A shrill electric buzz that released a tidal wave of blazer-clad children into the wild expanse of the playground. For many of us, that bell wasn't just a signal for a break. It was a starting pistol. It triggered a frantic pocket patting, a desperate search for the jingle of loose change, because you were about to head to the most important financial institution of your young life, the school tuck shop. It was never just a counter or a hatch in a wall. It was a kingdom, a proving ground. It was the place where we learned the brutal, brilliant first lessons of economics. It was where a handful of coppers could turn you into a playground aristocrat, and where the difference between a 10p coin and a 50p piece was the difference between being a humble citizen and an all-powerful monarch. This was our first real taste of economic freedom, and it tasted overwhelmingly of sugar. To truly understand this institution, we have to travel back to a time when the currency of this kingdom was measured in coppers and silver, and the greatest treasures came wrapped in wax paper, sold from giant glass jars. This was the era of the penny sweet. The very concept feels like a fantasy now. With a 10p coin clenched in your fist, you are a financial titan carefully curating a portfolio of sugary assets. And what a portfolio it was! Beyond the legendary blackjacks and fruit salads, there was the jaw-breaking challenge of an Anglo-bubbly bubblegum, a dense pink brick that promised a bubble of epic proportions if your jaw muscles were up to the task. There was the interactive fun of a sherbet dib-dab, a paper packet of sherbet that came with its own lollipop to dip in, a process that guaranteed sticky fingers and a white dusted school uniform. And who could forget the drumstick lolly, a strange hybrid of chew and lollipop in raspberry and milk flavours that would weld your teeth together with delightful cement-like strength. Then you had your flying saucers, your cola cubes and your sherbet fountains, all vying for a place in that little white paper bag. That bag was your vault. You'd clutch it for the rest of break time, the contents slowly becoming a single sticky mass, a testament to your shrewd investments and the glorious fleeting power of being a kid with a few pence to your name. If the era of penny sweets was the gentle, classical period of the tuck shop, then what came next was its rock and roll revolution. As the 70s gave way to the 80s and hurtled towards the 90s, the landscape of our little kingdom began to change. The humble paper bag, once heavy with a dozen disparate sweets, now often held just one or two items. But these items were different. They were titans of branding, playground status symbols wrapped in dazzling, colourful foil. This was the golden age of the British crisp, and at the tuck shop you were spoiled for choice. We're not just talking about flavours, but of physics. Take the holy trinity of texture. There were Quavers, those ethereally light, cheesy curls that seemed to evaporate the moment they hit your tongue. There were Watsits, the undisputed kings of melt-in-the-mouth technology that left your fingers coated in a legendary orange dust that was a badge of honour. And then there were Skips, the fizzy, prawn cocktail-flavoured UFOs that would sizzle and dissolve on your tongue like edible magic. Of course, these were just the supporting cast to the true giants, the magnificent Monster Munch in its original giant claw-shaped form, and the undisputed bargain of the century, a bag of Space Raiders for the impossibly low, magically fixed price of just 10p. It felt like the best deal in the universe.
The chocolate bar offering was just as competitive. Alongside the slim, cheap and cheerful fudge and chump bars, you had architectural marvels like the Curly Whirly. You also had true playground heavyweights. Was the wagon wheel a biscuit or a cake? No one knew, but its sheer size with that mallow filling made it a two-handed meal. There was the satisfying wafer and caramel crunch of a drifter. And for those who wanted a real challenge, there was the notoriously stubborn Texan bar, A slab of nougat and toffee so chewy it felt like a workout for your jaw. And yes, we all mourned when the mighty marathon bar inexplicably changed its name to Snickers. It never tasted quite the same again. And what did we wash all this down with? A bottle of Panda Pops, of course. Those luridly coloured fizzy potions that probably contained more E numbers than fruit. But at 10p or 20p a bottle, they were the lifeblood of the playground. Or if you were feeling exotic, you might get a carton of Umbongo, forever associated in our minds with a cartoon jungle and a ridiculously catchy theme tune. These snacks weren't just food, they were a statement. The bag of crisps you chose said something about you. This was no longer just about a sugar rush, it was about identity, packaged in crinkly plastic and sold for pocket money prices. But the tuck shop was so much more than the sum of its sugary parts. It was the epicenter of the playground's social world. A frantic marketplace where the currency wasn't just coins, but also kudos, swaps, and the sheer drama of the queue. Ah, the queue. It was rarely an orderly line. More often it was a chaotic, writhing snake of children, all buzzing with the same urgent mission. This was where the playground stock exchange operated, with murmured negotiations of, "I'll swap you my Quavers for your dib-dab." This complex bartering system sometimes even involved other currencies. A rare, shiny Panini football sticker could easily be traded for a premium chocolate bar. And sometimes, this frantic marketplace was the scene of the greatest of all playground tragedies. The moment of pure, slow-motion horror when a freshly purchased item slipped from your grasp. The collective sympathetic gasp from everyone in the queue as your prized Curly Whirly or just opened bag of Monster Munch hit the gritty tarmac. This was immediately followed by a frantic internal debate over the playground's most sacred and debated law, the 5-second rule. The offerings of this kingdom were also seasonal. On those rare, glorious British summer days, the sound of the bell was accompanied by the hum of a freezer. Suddenly, the queue had a new purpose. It was a pilgrimage for icy cold bliss. For a few pence more, you could get a Calippo, pushing the frozen block up its cardboard tube, or a Twister, with its iconic swirl of pineapple ice cream and strawberry fruit ice, or perhaps the ultimate ice lolly, a Fab, with its distinct 3 layers of strawberry, white vanilla, and a chocolate top coated in sprinkles. And presiding over all this drama, all this commerce, and all this seasonal change was the guardian of the goodies, the tuck shop lady. She seemed to come in one of 2 distinct models. There was the warm, grandmotherly type who knew your name and always had a kind word. And then there was the formidable, no-nonsense matriarch who had a stare that could quell a minor riot and demanded you had your money and your decision ready. Whichever she was, she possessed a set of near-supernatural skills, a mind like a supercomputer for rapid-fire mental arithmetic, and an unflappable demeanour. She was the immovable, steadfast centre of our chaotic, sugar-fueled universe. She wasn't just a shopkeeper. She was a crowd control expert, a child psychologist, and the first banker we ever had to answer to.
But the story of the tuck shop is also a story of change, and with change comes loss. As we look back through the mists of time, we see a confectionery graveyard filled with the ghosts of snacks we loved and lost. So let's pour one out for the fallen, the giants of the tuck shop that are no longer with us. We must, of course, begin with the mighty Texan bar. As we said, it wasn't just a chocolate bar, it was a commitment. That satisfyingly stubborn chew, the rich blend of nougat and toffee, made it a legend. Its slogan was, "A man's gotta chew what a man's gotta chew," and we all took that challenge seriously. Its disappearance left a hole in the market that has never truly been filled. And what about the architectural wonder that was the Cadbury Spira? 2 hollow, twisted fingers of dairy milk chocolate. It was delicious, yes, but it was also a tool. It was the perfect edible straw for your milk or tea, a trick we all tried at least once. It was fun, it was inventive, and one day it was simply gone. We remember others too.
the coconut and cherry dream of the cabana bar, the multi-textured explosion of the fuse bar, they all checked out, leaving nothing but sweet memories. But sometimes, just sometimes, the story has a happier ending. Sometimes the power of collective nostalgia is so strong that it can bend the will of even the largest corporations. And the greatest comeback story of them all is the tale of the Wispa. When Cadbury discontinued it, nobody could quite believe it. The light, bubbly, delicate texture was unique. A quiet public sadness soon grew into a vocal online movement. Grassroots campaigns were launched, petitions were signed, and incredibly, it worked. The people had spoken, and Cadbury listened. The day the Wispa returned to the shelves was a victory for nostalgia itself. It proved that these weren't just snacks to us. They were cherished parts of our childhood, edible time machines that we weren't ready to let go of. It showed that for every fallen giant, there's always the hope of a triumphant return, a chance to once again taste a piece of our past. But like all golden ages, and as we've seen with the ghosts of snacks past, it couldn't last forever. Slowly, then all at once, a new consciousness began to creep into the school corridors. The war on sugar was declared, and the humble school tuck shop, in its classic form, was living on borrowed time. The great glass jars of penny sweets began to disappear. The ranks of brightly coloured crisp packets were thinned, replaced by healthier, more sensible alternatives. Fizzy pop was exiled, making way for bottled water and fruit juice. The kingdom was being reformed, and its new constitution was written by nutritionists. And of course, looking back as adults, we know it was for the best. Our collective dental health as a nation is probably eternally grateful for the shift. But in gaining that nutritional wisdom, something was undeniably lost. Because the magic of the tuck shop was never really in the glucose syrup or the artificial flavourings or even in the snacks that now exist in our memories. The magic was in the choice. It was a classroom disguised as a counter, teaching us lessons we never realised we were learning. It taught us the value of money, the agony of a difficult decision, the joy of a transaction that was entirely our own, and the complex social dance of sharing, swapping, and the 5-second rule. The tuck shop gave us our first glorious taste of independence. It was a place where, for a few precious minutes and with just a few coins in our pocket, we got to be in charge. And that feeling, the feeling of walking out of that queue, back into the playground sunshine, clutching the prize you had chosen for yourself, that was the feeling of being a king. So, we want to know, what was your ultimate tuck shop purchase? What was the snack that made you feel like royalty? Let us know in the comments below.